The hostess stepped in front of me and blocked my path. "You're not on the list, sir." Through the window, I could see my grandson, 8 years old today, my little shadow, celebrating with nearly 80 strangers. I hadn't been invited to his birthday party, but 2 weeks earlier, I'd paid for it. $6,500. Every plate, every drink, every balloon. My daughter deposited the check and quietly erased me, so I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and made one call. Before we go any further, thank you for being here. If this story connects with you in any way, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. And if you want to hear more stories like this, go ahead and subscribe. One quick note: while some details in this story are fictionalized for storytelling, the lessons about family boundaries and self-worth are very real, and I hope they speak to you. The hostess at Riverstone Bistro smiled the way people do right before delivering bad news, polite, professional, rehearsed. I'd been coming to this place for over 20 years. I celebrated Laura's college acceptance here, her engagement, and the night she told me she was pregnant with Noah. The warm lighting and dark wood walls once felt like home. Tonight, standing in the marble entryway in worn khakis and my best navy polo, the one Laura used to say made me look distinguished, I felt like I didn't belong. Through the glass doors of the private room, I saw my grandson, 8 years old today, dressed in a crisp blue shirt. Silver and blue balloons floated near the ceiling, forming giant numbers. Around him, close to 80 people laughed, their voices softened by the glass. I didn't recognize most of them. The hostess, Emily, checked her clipboard again. "I'm sorry, sir. The room is at capacity. Exactly 80 guests, and your name isn't listed." The compass in my pocket suddenly felt heavy. I'd spent last Saturday polishing it, rereading the engraving. "Always find your way home." I planned to give it to Noah after dinner and watch his face light up. "There has to be a mistake," I said quietly. "I'm Noah's grandfather. I paid for this party. $6,500. 2 weeks ago." Emily's smile faltered. She glanced toward the room. "Let me get Mrs. Carter." 6 months earlier, Laura had gone back to using her married name full-time, right after Daniel made senior partner. I should have noticed the slow fade. I watched Emily whisper to my daughter at the head table. The color drained from Laura's face. Daniel stood up calmly, setting his wine glass down with care. Laura followed him, hesitant. The door opened and laughter spilled into the hallway. Noah stood near the gift table, distracted. He hadn't seen me yet. "Dad," Laura said, avoiding my eyes. "This is awkward." "I gave you $6,500, I replied evenly. "The check cleared, and I'm not on the guest list." Her hands twisted together. "Daniel's parents invited so many people from his firm, and we had to cap it at 80 because of safety limits, and I was the one you cut," I finished. Daniel's hand rested on her shoulder. "This party is about the kids," he said smoothly. "Noah's classmates from his school, families we socialize with, business friends who've become close. I'm sure you understand." I did. Through the glass, I watched an adult guide Noah toward the cake before he could look my way. I was the one who didn't fit. The retired firefighter with the small house, the old truck, the scarred hands, the quiet embarrassment they'd chosen to remove. Laura was crying silently. I turned back to Emily. "Thank you for trying." Then I faced my daughter, the child I raised alone, the one I worked 3 jobs for, the one I proudly walked down the aisle. "I hope the $6,500 makes this party everything you wanted," I said, calm and steady, "because that's all I have left to give." Her face went pale. I walked out into the warm June evening, my steps even, the compass heavy in my pocket. Behind me, voices dropped into murmurs. Emily's reflection in the glass showed sympathy. I didn't look back. Some losses don't announce themselves loudly. You simply realize you no longer belong, and you leave with the dignity you can still carry, hoping time will someday teach them what absence truly costs. I reached my truck before the tears came. 15 minutes had passed since I left the restaurant, but it felt like a lifetime. My hands shook too badly to get the key into the ignition. The old Ford, 23 years together, sat alone at the far edge of the lot. Through the windshield, families walked inside, dressed up and smiling, living the Saturday night I thought was mine. I gripped the steering wheel and let myself break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears for promises I could no longer keep. Helen made me swear the night before she passed. Cancer took 8 months to pull her away, and on her last clear-minded evening she said, "Don't let Laura feel alone, Michael. Not ever. She's going to need you." For 22 years, I kept that promise. I worked 3 jobs to keep Laura in college. I sold my father's vintage motorcycle, the one thing I truly loved, to help pay for her wedding. I showed up for every milestone she allowed me to share. And tonight, she erased me. My phone buzzed. Laura's name lit up the screen. Then again. Then an unfamiliar number. I watched the calls stack up and felt something shift in my chest. Daniel's words echoed in my mind. Easy, confident. She always gets over it. She always forgives. I called Robert. "Mike," he answered immediately. 30 years of friendship. I told him everything. "They locked me out of Noah's birthday," I said flatly. "I paid for it." Silence. Then, "Where are you?" "In the parking lot. I'm okay, but I need to move fast." My next call was to Andrew Collins, my financial advisor, the man who helped me build Noah's education fund $200 at a time. "Andrew, I need to stop payment on a check. $3,700. "Michael, it's Saturday." "I know it has to be tonight," I said. $6,500 total, $2,800 already cleared as a deposit. The rest is still pending." I paused, then added, "I'm changing the education fund too. Make it a trust. I'm the trustee." "Laura won't have access?" he asked quietly. "She won't," I said. $25,000, he repeated. "For Noah." "That's right. Whatever happens between you and your daughter, that money will stay protected." "You're making the right call," Andrew said. "I'll take care of it on Monday." By then, the tears were gone. One more call. Riverstone Bistro. "This is Daniel." "Daniel, it's Michael Turner." There was a brief pause. "I heard there was some confusion at the door tonight." "There is an issue with the payment for the Carter party," I said calmly. Silence. "What kind of issue?" "I'm stopping payment on the remaining balance. You can keep the deposit, but I'm not paying for a party I wasn't invited to." Daniel let out a slow breath. 20 years you've been coming here, and they shut you out." "Yes," I replied. "Then they don't get my money." He didn't hesitate. "I'll suspend dinner service immediately." "You don't have to do that." "I remember who showed up when my mother was dying," he said quietly. "You did." The sky faded from gold to deep blue as my phone continued to buzz. I ignored it. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was done making myself smaller. I turned the key. The Ford came to life, steady and familiar. As I pulled away, the restaurant glowed behind me. Somewhere inside, my grandson was turning 8. I didn't know yet that he was standing on a chair, refusing to blow out his candles, calling for me, but I would soon enough. My house on Maple Street felt unbearably quiet when I pulled into the driveway after 8:30. Porch lights glowed softly along the block, a normal summer Saturday night. The kind I'd imagined sharing later, maybe with Noah beside me, talking non-stop about his presence. Instead, I was alone. I flipped on the kitchen light. My eyes went straight to the refrigerator, covered with photos held up by magnets shaped like little fire trucks. There we were, Noah and me last July, holding up a fish we'd caught together. His grin missing 2 front teeth, my arm around his shoulders. Beside it, Laura in her graduation gown at 22. I'd worked 3 jobs that year to make it happen, worth every tired morning. Helen should have been there. Cancer took her when Laura was 16, 8 months from diagnosis to goodbye. That last night, I promised her I'd always take care of our daughter, that she'd never feel alone. I kept that promise for 22 years until tonight, when keeping it meant I was the one left standing alone. When Noah was born, holding him felt like getting a piece of Helen back. The same dark eyes, the same stubborn chin, a second chance. Last summer, we spent Saturday mornings in my garage. I taught him how to use a hand plane, how to read the grain of the wood, his small hands next to mine, the smell of sawdust between us. "Gramps, how do you know how to make everything?" he'd asked. "Because my dad taught me, and his dad taught him," I said. "Now I'm teaching you." 2 months ago, Noah drew me a picture, Crayons on construction paper, stick figures fishing with huge smiles. At the top it said, "My hero, Grandpa Mike." Laura brought it over, glowing. The following week, she mentioned that Daniel had made Noah take it down. "It doesn't match the decor," she said. That should have been my warning. Last Thanksgiving, Daniel forgot to invite me. I ate a frozen turkey dinner alone. Then the Saturday visits started shifting every week. Noah suddenly had activities scheduled exactly when I'd normally come. Laura suggested Sundays. Soon, Sundays filled up too. Once, I overheard Daniel telling Noah, "Grandpa's house is old, buddy. We're building you something better." Noah's small voice answered, "But I like Gramps' house. It smells like cookies and wood." It wasn't coincidence. It was a campaign, slow, deliberate, erasing me one weekend at a time. I walked into the garage. My workbench stood against the far wall, tools hanging exactly where they'd always been. I'd built that bench with my father when I was 12. I opened the drawer where I kept sandpaper. There, folded carefully beneath the supplies, was Noah's drawing. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The colors were bright and confident. The stick figure me wore a firefighter's helmet. The stick figure Noah held a fishing pole. Both of us smiling. My hero, he'd hidden it. My 8-year-old grandson had hidden his love for me like it was something fragile, something he had to protect. "No more," I said aloud to the empty garage. "I'm done disappearing." Inside the house, my phone buzzed again. Call after call, unknown numbers. Laura's name, more unknown numbers. I let them all go to voicemail. Whatever they wanted to say, I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. I didn't know then that one of those calls was from someone I never expected. Someone who'd been inside that restaurant, who'd seen everything and decided she couldn't stay silent. I would learn soon enough. For now, I sat with Noah's drawing and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. Before I tell you who arrived at 9 o'clock with proof that exposed the entire manipulation, type home in the comments so I know you're still here. One quick note. The story moving forward includes dramatized elements to highlight real family dynamics. If that doesn't resonate with you, you're free to step away. The knock came just after 9. Through the window, I saw a figure on my porch. Designer blazer, immaculate hair. Elaine. I opened the door slowly. "Elaine, this is unexpected." In 5 years of Laura's marriage, Daniel's mother had visited my home only twice, each time politely commenting on something outdated. Tonight, she looked different, uneasy. "May I come in, Michael?" No authority in her voice, just a question. I stepped aside. She sat on the couch, clutching her expensive handbag like armor, and for the first time, didn't scan the room with quiet judgment. "What happened tonight was wrong," she said directly. I waited. "I didn't know you weren't on the guest list until I saw you at the door. I asked Laura about it while Daniel was dealing with the restaurant." Her voice tightened. "She told me you'd chosen not to come, that you weren't feeling well." I shook my head. I was never told about the party. Laura cashed my $6,500 check 2 weeks ago. Her face drained of color. "Oh, God." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "You need to see this." She showed me a message thread. Daniel and Laura planning to exclude me, talking about phasing out my visits. Daniel calling my home depressing, saying they needed to limit Noah's exposure so he wouldn't develop lower expectations. Laura's replies were shorter, but always in agreement. I handed the phone back. Something inside me went very still. "I'm showing you this because it won't stop," Elaine said quietly. "Daniel will keep pushing you out, and Laura will let him." "Why tell me?" I asked. "He's your son." "He is," she said, her voice breaking. "And I love him, but I don't like who he's become." She swallowed hard. "Daniel did this to his own grandfather. Cut him off completely because he embarrassed him professionally. That man died alone in a nursing home. Daniel didn't even attend the funeral. I forgave him, thought he'd change. He hasn't. He's worse." She stood, then hesitated. "The party ended badly. When the restaurant suspended service, people started leaving, but that's not the worst part." She told me about Noah, how he realized I wasn't there, how he asked his mother why. "Your grandson said, 'But Gramps is family. He matters more than those people.'" My throat tightened. Then he climbed onto a chair and said, This isn't a real birthday without Gramps. He pushed the cake away and refused the candles. I could picture it, my brave boy. He yelled at Daniel, "You're mean. You made Gramps go away." Tears blurred my vision. I couldn't stop them. "Your grandson stood up for you," Elaine said softly. "He's 8 years old, and he knew what was right." After Elaine left, I sat alone in the dark for a long time, thinking about courage, about how an 8-year-old had shown more of it than I had in years. I didn't know then that the hardest conversation was still 3 days away, that Laura would eventually show up at my door broken and desperate. But that night, one thing was clear. My grandson had just taught me it's never too late to stand up for yourself. The next morning, Robert arrived with his wife, Linda, carrying a pan of homemade biscuits. I hadn't slept much. I kept seeing Noah standing on that chair. I kept hearing Elaine's words. When the doorbell rang just after 9, I was sitting at the kitchen table with cold coffee, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Robert took one look at me. "We heard, Mike. Small town." Linda didn't wait for an invitation. She walked straight in, set the dish on the counter. "You're not going through this alone." Within minutes, plates were out, biscuits split, butter and jam spread thick. The smell filled the kitchen, warm, familiar, grounding. "Sit," Linda said firmly. I tried to keep it together, but when she wrapped her arms around me, something finally gave. I broke right there, crying into her shoulder, while Robert's hand tightened on my arm. "Let it out, brother," he said quietly. I told them everything. The restaurant, the check, Daniel's smooth dismissal, Elaine's visit, the messages, and Noah standing up for me when no one else would. Linda's face flushed. "That man," she started, catching herself. Robert leaned forward. "Mike, remember when I lost my job 7 years ago and didn't know how we'd make the mortgage?" I nodded. "You showed up with groceries, helped me find work, never asked for a thing." His voice was rough. "We're here now, whatever you need." Linda wiped her eyes. "Robert told me Noah talks about you constantly at his Little League games. Every week. My Gramps the firefighter. That boy adores you." I hadn't realized he still talked about me like that. Not long after, Mrs. Patterson from next door appeared at the screen door. She'd spotted Robert's car. At 78, she missed very little on Maple Street. "Michael," she said, "I've watched you with that boy for years. You're a wonderful grandfather." She gestured down the block. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. You're worth twice what that son-in-law will ever be." Her words landed harder than I expected. Around 11, Daniel Morales from the restaurant called. "The community talks," he said. "What your son-in-law pulled, that's not how family treats family." He paused. "If you need anything, a reference, someone to speak up, call me." After everyone left, I sat on the front porch watching the neighborhood. Kids playing basketball, Mr. Johnson washing his car. Ordinary Sunday sounds. I'd been so focused on not losing Laura and Noah that I'd forgotten I had a whole life. Friends who'd known me for decades. Neighbors who saw my worth. A community that valued me. Linda's words echoed. "Maybe it's time you stand up for yourself." Robert's voice, too. "You deserve respect. From everyone, including your daughter." They were right. For 3 days, I heard nothing from Laura. No calls, no texts. I spent that time with Robert, reconnecting with old firefighter buddies, fixing things around the house. I wasn't hiding. I was reclaiming myself. On Wednesday afternoon, 4 days after the party, Laura's car pulled into my driveway. I'd expected her, but watching her sit there for a full minute before getting out, I realized something. I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next, but I was ready to hold my ground. When she finally stepped out, she looked exhausted. No makeup, hair pulled back, yoga pants, and an oversized shirt instead of the polished clothes she usually wore. She looked small. I opened the door before she knocked. We stood at the threshold. I saw my little girl, the one who crawled into my bed during storms, who held my hand at her mother's memorial, and I saw a stranger who had chosen appearances over love. "Can I come in, Dad?" I stepped aside. Inside, she stopped and twisted her hands. "I'm sorry," she said, and then she collapsed, sobbing. Every instinct told me to hold her, to fix it like I always had. I didn't move. I let her cry. I waited. It hurt, but it mattered. After a while, she sank onto the couch. I sat across from her, not beside her. The space between us felt enormous. "I don't know what happened to me," she whispered. I don't know who I became. She told me how it started after Daniel's promotion, small suggestions, spending more time with his colleagues, for his career, for Noah's future. Then comments about my house being small, about needing higher expectations. Each thing alone sounded reasonable. Together, she admitted, he was erasing me, and she let it happen. It was easier to agree than fight, she said. Then I started believing it, that you didn't fit, that your life was less. The memory of the restaurant cut deep. You asked me what I was able to offer, Mom, she said, breaking. I meant money, but I heard how cruel it sounded. Daniel was there. I couldn't take it back. You chose him, I said quietly. I chose fear, she cried. She took a breath. I begged him to let you come. We fought for 2 weeks. Then she whispered the truth. He said, if I invited you, he'd divorce me and fight for full custody of Noah. Everything went still. He threatened to take my son, she said, with his lawyers, his money. He said I'd lose. I felt anger and understanding, not forgiveness, not yet. So you chose to lose me instead? I asked. She nodded, trembling. I thought I could manage both, she said. Then the visits faded. The invitations stopped. I told myself it was temporary. She looked at me, waiting. Until Saturday. You still chose, I said steadily. You chose his threat over your father. I know. Silence filled the room. Sunlight drifted through the dust, and nothing felt normal. She sat there with her shoulders shaking, waiting for me to speak, to absolve her. I felt every year of my life in that pause, the promise I'd made to her mother, the cost of keeping it. Love hadn't disappeared, but trust had cracked. She needed to understand that forgiveness isn't a switch, that consequences carry weight. I told her I loved her, because that was true. But love didn't erase what happened. It meant we would face it honestly, without lies or fear, no matter how painful rebuilding might be. Time, patience, and accountability would decide whether we found our way back to each other, or whether some distance would remain between us in the years ahead. She wiped her face. There's something else about Noah after you left. Her voice broke. He thinks you don't love him anymore. That's when my tears finally came. I'd cried twice since Helen passed. Once when they closed the casket, and I understood I'd never see her face again, and once when Noah was born, when they placed that tiny, squirming bundle in my arms. That Wednesday afternoon, sitting in my living room, I cried a third time, not because Laura betrayed me, not because Daniel erased me, but because somewhere across town, my 8-year-old grandson believed his grandfather had stopped loving him. Helen made me promise the night before she died. I said quietly, take care of Laura. Don't let her feel alone. I'd kept that promise for 26 years, and somehow, in doing so, I let Noah feel abandoned. Tell me what happened at the restaurant, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the tightness in my chest. Everything. Laura wiped her eyes with her sleeve. She looked as exhausted as I felt. Daniel Morales came to our table around 7, she said. Calm, polite. He said there was a payment issue and service had to pause. She swallowed. Daniel exploded, yelled, demanded a manager. Carlos told him he was the manager. Noah didn't understand. He kept asking where his cake was, where you were. Her voice cracked. He was watching the door all night, Dad. Every time someone walked in, he thought it was you. The compass on my mantel caught the fading light. Always find your way home. Helen had given it to me before she got sick. I'd planned to give it to Noah that night. When did he realize I wasn't coming? When I told him, she said, twisting her hands. After Carlos left, Daniel was on the phone with his lawyer, trying to force the restaurant to keep serving. Noah looked at me and said, Grandpa isn't on the list, is he? I closed my eyes. I lied, she whispered. I told him you were sick. He said, Grandpa would have come anyway, unless he didn't want to. 8 years old, already learning that love can disappear. The party fell apart, she continued. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't open gifts. People started leaving. Then Noah climbed onto a chair in front of everyone and said, This isn't a real birthday without Grandpa Michael. Somebody made him leave. She sobbed. He threw cake on the floor. He screamed at Daniel, said he was mean, said he made you go away. It took 3 adults to get him out. My chest felt hollow. Later, Putting him to bed, he asked if he'd done something wrong, if that's why you didn't come. She lowered her voice. He hid the compass you gave him. He was scared Daniel would throw it out like the drawing. He checks it every night, reads the words, and he thinks you don't want him to find his way back to you anymore. I couldn't breathe. All I could see was my grandson in the dark, clutching that compass, believing he was unloved. Helen's voice echoed again. Don't let her feel alone. But I'd let Noah feel worse than alone. This changes, I said, firm despite the tears. Now, today. And it happens on 3 conditions. Laura nodded frantically. Anything. We'll get to that, I said. But first, you call Noah right now. Put me on the phone with my grandson. I'd never set real boundaries with my daughter before. I'd always given time, money, forgiveness, kept giving until there was nothing left. That ended that night. 3 conditions, I said, my voice steady. First, Noah comes here every Thursday afternoon. Just him and me. No Daniel, no interruptions, no excuses. 3 to 7 every week. She nodded. Yes, I promise. Second, family therapy. You, me, and Noah. Not couples counseling. Family therapy with a professional for the damage done. I'll find someone, she whispered. I'll make the appointments. Third, money. She flinched. I stopped payment on $3,700, but I lost $2,800 in deposits and $35 in fees. Total loss, $2,835. I paused. The price is $3,200. The extra $400 is tuition for this lesson. Her eyes widened. You'll pay me back $500 a month. Not because I need it, because you need to learn that my love requires respect. She broke down. I'll pay it back. I'll get a job. One more thing, I said quietly. A consequence. If you or Daniel ever make me feel less than again, exclude me, hide me, treat me like I don't belong, I'm done. No second chances. Silence settled between us. I'm 65, I said. I don't have time for people who don't value me, even family. She hugged me. I allowed it, but didn't fully return it. Acceptance isn't absolution. That takes time. That was 8 months ago. Within 3 weeks, Laura separated from Daniel. She and Noah moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Elaine covered the deposit. The ultimatum was clear: therapy and real change, or lose his family. Daniel chose therapy. Laura took a part-time job as a physical therapy aide. $500 every month, always early. The final payment came 6 months later. Thursday afternoons became sacred. At first, Noah was cautious, testing whether I'd disappear again. I stayed patient. By week 3, he brought out the compass. I don't have to hide this anymore. We baked cookies, built birdhouses, fished at the pond. One afternoon, he hugged me and whispered, I missed you so much, Grandpa. I barely held myself together. Family therapy was hard. Noah talked about feeling abandoned. Laura had to listen. And I learned how to trust again. Some sessions ended in tears, others in silence. But slowly, we rebuilt. I'd seen Daniel only 3 times in 8 months. Polite, distant. Vanessa told me he was attending individual therapy, a condition enforced by the separation. Slow progress, she said. But he was trying. For the first time. Maybe really trying. Vanessa and I meet for coffee once a month. We're not close, but we both love Noah. Sometimes, that's enough. I started living for myself. I teach woodworking now. I joined Robert's book club. Poker nights with old firehouse friends. I stopped waiting to be invited into Laura's life. I saw my house differently. Not small, not outdated, but full of 30 years of memories. Enough. I am enough. Last Thursday, Noah said, Grandpa, my 9th birthday's coming. I smiled. Can I have it here? He asked. Just family. You, me, Mom, Dad, and Grandma Vanessa, if he behaves. No fancy place. Just us. My eyes burned. That's what he wanted. The best birthdays are with those who love you. Kimberly stood in the driveway, crying. I thought about the pain, the boundaries, the rebuilding. I said, that sounds perfect. I didn't know that Noah's 9th birthday would bring one more chance to heal, a moment that would test everything we'd rebuilt, and show that boundaries don't end love. They give it room to survive, grow stronger, and become something honest, lasting, and safe. On the day, I woke up in my own bed, in my house on Elm Avenue, feeling something I hadn't in a long time: peace. A year ago, I'd been humiliated outside Riverside Grill. Today, I was preparing a party in my own home, chosen by Noah. We decorated Thursday, hand-drawn banner, "Happy 9th birthday, Noah," with "Best Grandpa Ever" added. We cleared the garage, borrowed chairs from Robert, ordered pizza, pepperoni, and cheese. Vanessa brought a simple chocolate cake with blue frosting. At 2, Noah arrived with Laura. "Grandpa, can I help?" Together we set up. Guests arrived: Robert and Linda, Vanessa, Mrs. Patterson, 2 friends from baseball, 10 people total. I counted, remembering 80 strangers last year. This felt full, complete. Laughter and stories filled the garage. Noah showed friends his projects. Robert told old firefighter tales. Noah glowed with pride. At 3:30, a knock. Merrick stood at the door. Silence. Nobody expected him. Different jeans and polo, not a suit. Holding a gift, looking nervous. "Gregory, can I talk to you?" Ethan stepped behind me. Merrick stepped inside. Everyone watched. He sat down, gift in hand, looking around. "I need to apologize publicly," he said, voice shaking. "Gregory, I was wrong. Completely wrong. I was cruel, controlling. I let ego destroy what mattered. I did to you what my father did to his dad. My grandfather passed away alone because Dad was too important to associate with him. I swore I'd never be like him, but I became worse. You never did anything but love Noah, but I pushed you out. Made Laura push you out. Made my son think his grandfather didn't love him. I hurt Grandpa, hurt Mom, hurt you. That was wrong. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to be better. I don't know if I can fix everything, but I'm trying." Noah looked at him. "Grandpa, do you forgive him?" Everyone waited. "I'm learning too," I said to Noah. "Forgiveness takes time. It's something you do every day. But yes, I'm trying. We're all trying." Noah pulled out the compass I'd given him. "Always find your way home, Grandpa." He held it up. "Grandpa gave me this. When I was sad, I looked at it. I knew Grandpa loved me. The compass always pointed home." He looked around. "We're all home now. Together, right?" My eyes filled with happy tears. "That's right, buddy. We're all home." Ethan hugged me, then pulled Merrick and Laura in. Not perfect, but healing. Later, after everyone left, Noah said, "This was my best birthday ever, Grandpa. Better than a fancy restaurant. Way better, because you were here, because everyone who matters was here." That night, on my porch, I reflected, I'm enough. Not because of dollars or possessions, but because I loved unconditionally. Because I showed up. Because I know my worth. Noah taught me that. A 9-year-old who chose love over appearances, who stood on a chair demanding his grandfather, who knew what truly matters. 10 people instead of 80, garage instead of fancy restaurant, but he called it his best birthday ever, and he meant it. Yesterday, Noah said he wants to help plan next year's party. "We'll do friendship bracelets, Grandpa. A craft station in the garage. Make sure there are enough supplies for you, too. You're not just helping, you're the guest of honor. Guest of honor in my own home for my grandson's birthday. Exactly where I belong. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I believed it. Looking back, I see how close I came to losing everything that mattered. Don't wait until you're standing outside a locked door to realize your worth isn't measured by what you can give, but by who you are. God reminds us we are fearfully and wonderfully made. I spent years believing I had to earn love through my wallet. The Lord teaches us to set healthy boundaries, yet I gave until there was nothing left. And Scripture reminds us, forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. Something I learned the hard way over 8 months of healing. These grandpa stories aren't just about birthdays or family drama. They're about realizing God already declares you valuable, regardless of how others treat you. My grandson, Noah, understood what I had forgotten. Real love doesn't need fancy restaurants or 80 guests. It needs presence, respect, and people who truly see you. If you're watching and feel invisible in your own family, hear me. You are enough. Set boundaries. Demand respect. God didn't create you to be erased from the lives of those you love. So many grandpa stories shared in the comments have moved me deeply. They remind me we're not alone in these struggles, that families everywhere are learning what truly matters. If this resonated with you, leave a comment telling me the lesson that hit home. Share this with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe. We're building a community where every story matters. Thank you for staying until the end. A gentle reminder, these stories contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content doesn't suit you, feel free to explore other videos. Your comfort matters. There's no judgment in choosing what's right for you.